From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Ken Napzok.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
And I'm Jennifer Landa.
And we are here to answer your Star Wars questions. We have some great ones today. We are going to have fun with a draft of sorts or a naming of names. It's going to be fun. Draft your quarterback here today. These questions are coming from you, our listeners on Patreon. We had a lot of fun last time out, taking some directly from Discord. And there's still some in there, but Jen, we had a lot of fun. But this week, Jen, we got Joseph with us, so it's going to be a full, robust conversation.
That's right. Right. Yes, yeah. I'm looking forward to it because I need some help on this first one.
Yes. It'll be a good conversation.
Before we dive into all that, as always, we want to remind you today's podcast. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com. and .com, over 180,000 titles to choose from to calm you down for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. We are recommending Rebel Rising by Beth Revis, an old favorite of ours around here. Hear it again for the first time, or hear it for the legitimate first time. Download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. From there, we go to our Ask Joseph. What are we asking?
We are asking for support on Patreon. Thank you to everybody who has been there for many years, people who are jumping on. Some people need to take a break and come back. It is all very much appreciated with all the different ways we use to try to financially keep the podcast growing. Patreon has always been the most stable, so we want to put our attention to it. We're trying to get to a goal of 415 paid patrons, at which point we will do a live stream for patrons only. On a recent episode, Ken described it as a private live stream, which made it sound really saucy and exciting. So I don't know, maybe we'll wear weird hats that the public can never see. I don't know. It's going to make it so private, but it's going to be private for patrons only. When we reach 415 paid patrons, we're at about 403 now. So thank you all for the support. We also want to let you know that, hey, if you want to keep up with the podcast when we announce new episodes or, other stuff that we have to announce, that we are on Blue Sky and Threads right now. Our account is still up on X, but we're not going to be posting there unless we absolutely have to. The situation there has just gotten distasteful to us.
Imperial troops have entered the base. Imperial troops.
Yep. And they're just posting BS. Yes, exactly. All the time. So please join us over on Blue Sky and Threads if you haven't already. I was going to say more, but I'm not going to. That's it. We're going to move on. That's it for the episode. Now we're going to move on to the cues. You guys both ready for this first question?
Mm-hmm.
Let's cue it up.
Excellent. This comes to us from patrons on Patreon. From patron Lack of Response says, I must call on your knowledge of generational storytelling in Star Wars. I was enjoying your discussion of a cue about Reylo shipping and how Rey represents the continuation of the Skywalkers, while Kylo's sacrifice concludes the Skywalker bloodline, and wondered, do you think Rey will catch flack for her ancestry like Leia did in the Bloodline book? Could there be some senator or the even newer Republic that shares a Raincourt from Acolytes suspicion of the Jedi and uses Rey's own grandfather against her as a way to shut down the new Jedi Order? This is a thing that I had not thought about at all. The Bloodline book, which came out in the mid-20 teens there, really dealt with Leia being ostracized because the truth of her lineage of being the daughter of Vader finally came out, and kind of how she handled that, who stuck with her and who used it as a political opportunity. I think is a really great book. I haven't revisited it in a while, but I think all of that was a really interesting take on the more political reality of Star Wars and how this sort of mythic storytelling that's in the original trilogy of your father is the villain. What does that mean to you? Could get turned into real political reality. So, Ken, where do you start with this idea?
I start with, hey, that's a great question. And it made me look up Ransom Casterfo from Bloodlines.
That's it.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, and by the way, I just typed in a search, and one thing came up that said Snoke is Ransom Casterfo from 2016. It's a different time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something
Oh,
else. Anyways, but again, factor into that story. Bloodlines remains even after all these years. Just absolutely one of the best Star Wars books out there. So I like this idea. I don't think I want it to be the main thrust behind any kind of story against Ray, any obstacles or any of the adversaries against Ray, but it would definitely factor into it, especially if there's politics involved and some stuff Sharmina Benchoy say about, hey, you got some people with a power that could help some people. You might have those who stand in front of that and don't want that to happen. What better way to say, she chose the name, the Skywalkers. Here's a list of the things they've done, right? Mannequin to you want to talk about Ben, the saved Ben Solo? No, here's what he actually did. We know the truth. You could, if I pull in, where was Luke when we needed Luke? He ran away. Well, but he helped us on Crate. Do we know that? I wasn't there. Were you on Crate? That doesn't seem like a truthful news. We'll call it. So I think you could have a lot of fun with that. I say fun, but like it would be strikingly real. But I think it makes a lot of sense as a starting point for some stuff.
Yeah, where I start with it is I love this idea for a book.
right.
We can discuss it much more. It's a fascinating, great, rich idea. Or hey, if there's an animated series or whatever, I do think that this is such a very real political thing, and I want more politics in Star Wars and more of these kinds of discussions. And you're right, Ken, wrestling with the Skywalker of it, of like your weird clone grandfather was Palpatine, but you're a dyad with this guy. What's a dyad? Look at
yeah.
I always love it when sort of the more day-to-day people in Star Wars have to deal with the sort of mystical stuff that we know. And they're like, what is that even? She dyaded with who? When? Why?
yeah.
All that stuff, that tapestry of her relationships is fascinating. But I feel like you maybe have the room to dive into it in a book setting, and I have larger desires for what the film would be, and I wonder how it makes sense in the film, but I wonder if it would be best for the film. That's my starting point. Jennifer, where do you start with all this?
I agree. I think it's better. The story is better served in a book. There, like you said, there's just more room to explore it. It's really internet culture attacking Rey from both sides. She can't win. And there is something interesting about that. The idea that, my mom always says, she's religious, the sins of the father, mothers fall upon the children, right?
Yeah.
Generational sin, but it's not like Palpatine raised her, she's not like complicit in what he was doing. She just happens to, be related.
So what you're saying is Palpatine's Joe Kennedy, what you're saying.
Oh my gosh.
Got it.
Started. Don't get me started.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I mean, the thing, yeah, anyway, Rey is not,
She's not a Kennedy.
She's not a Kennedy.
She's not a Kennedy.
She is not a Kennedy.
Kick Kennedy or whatever. Dating Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
Going down that road.
Rey's like, I reject that. I adopt the name Dukakis. That's not even accurate, but you know what I mean.
But people may also be like, you were holding hands with Ben. What's up with that? You have this toxic relationship with a murderer. I don't know if they're going to know all that unless someone pulls out some cell phone footage.
If Beaumont Kin starts publishing tell-alls,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But it's been a while. I never finished Bloodline. I only got, I think, like halfway through. I loved it, but I never finished it. So, I'm sure that more was explored.
Well, Jen, if you go to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter, you can get a free audio and help out.
Finish the last half.
And help yourself. Help yourself, Jennifer.
Yeah. All right. I'll do that.
Really makes a big difference. So diving a little deeper into this about why I feel like book, even though it's really compelling, and it does make it makes perfect sense for the film that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy has described of the new Jedi are rising. They are led by Rey. Other people don't want them to exist. So yes, attacking her politically makes perfect sense. But in terms of like a personal journey for Rey, I feel like she would have processed that and put it away, right? And for her, it would have been like, don't talk to me about this, and I so want her to be focused on the new conflict, because that was her conflict in Rise of Skywalker is, all of the vile people around me are telling me I'm defined by this weird connection. And her doubt in the middle of the film is, oh my God, what if I am? And she so powerfully and strongly rejects that of, no, I decide who I am by my actions and who I decide my family is. So it's hard for me to think of like, it's a good political attack on her in the movie, but in terms of what Rey is going through as a character for her own conflict, this is what she went through in Rise of Skywalker. So I don't want to see a repeat of that. I want her conflict to be, now I'm in the teacher and parent role. Now I'm playing the role that I didn't have. And now I have all this pressure on myself to give to these young Jedi what I did not receive until I met Luke, until I met Leia. And that to me is just a much more interesting conflict than anything that risks dragging her back into repeating the conflict that she had in Rise of Skywalker. Ken, do you have any thoughts on kind of what Rey's conflict might be and how it would be shaped by this?
Well, first of all, I do think you're right in that regard. It is danger of repeating themes and stuff. So even when I was saying, like, secondary attacks, so to speak, of the story, I hope there's some politicians in it, and this seems like something they do. But in terms of what she's going to face going forward, I love what you're saying about she is very confident. And we talked a lot about Daisy Ridley herself being confident in our last news episode. So carrying that into it, confident in the sense of I know the trials and tribulations I went through, and I know who I am on the other side of it. And I'm still going to be that in face of what I'm, the adversaries around me, trying to take my power, trying to stop my power, trying to stop what I want to do with the Jedi Order. I think part of her list of villains to face could be a Jedi, right? Mm-hmm. Could be a Jedi saying, nope, that's not what we should do, or nope, that's not what we do. And her kind of dreaming up this new future and having already dreamt up a lot of this new future with the Jedi Order. So that's what I'm kind of, looking for. But without a doubt, I do think it will have political ties. And I know you agree with that as well. But so that's kind of the general sense of what I'd like her to face going forward. I am this. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Jennifer, what kind of conflict do you want an adult Rey to face? And do you feel like her past should be a part of it?
I think that's a good point, Ken, as you're describing it. I will be really frustrated if it's all about like her ancestry. I'm going to be really angry watching this play out and be like, no, but just she's got a good heart. She's not like her family, right? So that to me is not what I want to see on screen. I want to be taken on an adventure, and I do want the conflict to come more within the Jedi and that, like, kind of this wrestle between the old ways versus the new ways, maybe challenging what we know of the Jedi, which we definitely saw a lot in with the Acolyte. I want to see more of that. That to me is more interesting. But it would be great to explore this in several chapters in a book, or like, kind of a B storyline. I think that could be really interesting. But I don't want to see it on screen. I want to see something more thrilling and less political, I guess, or have it the politics be around the Jedi and not like external.
Yeah. Or like a drive-by acknowledgement of, is great. I want to talk a little bit about this and ask you both too, because lack of response starts the question with generational storytelling. I feel like Star Wars, in particular, this film has this unique challenge in that we've talked a lot about Star Wars has always been generational storytelling. The original trilogy is about how does Luke handle this knowledge of who his father was. Or it is. We've talked a lot about how nostalgia is baked into Star Wars. It starts with the words "a long time ago" and Luke dreaming of becoming a noble Jedi of the past from this long ago lost time where there were great Jedi. Nostalgia and generational storytelling are baked into Star Wars, and we are at I think a height in the culture of a pendulum swing to reboots, reexaminations, IP, where audiences are tired of what I think are some of the essential ingredients of Star Wars. So even I'm having this reaction to be like, well, it would be totally logical that as an adult, Rey would still maybe wrestle with this. It's totally logical that politically people would attack her for taking on the Skywalker name, and did the Skywalkers really help the galaxy? If the Palpatine thing came out, of course it would be big. So there's this part of me is like, oh, it all makes so much sense. It's also interesting, but at the same time, I just kind of feel like culturally, in the moment it's being created in, Star Wars cannot fully embrace the parts of its DNA that are generational storytelling and nostalgia. Ken, do you have any thoughts about that?
It seems like every bar argument we're about to get into, not you and I, but you and I walking into a bar and people going, these guys know, and then we're suddenly pulled into a screaming match in a bar about what Star Wars is or not. And it can be a lot of things, but I think there's some core tenets it doesn't need to move off of, it shouldn't have. But I'm boiling it down to a simple thing for me to understand what you're saying of, if this, let's say it's 3 films. Right. Let's say right now it's 1, and we hope there's the one. But let's say they're like, this is so fun. We're going to do 2 more. It's a trilogy in Star Wars. What a thing. I would want her obviously to grow, obviously to have generational change and generational exchange and obviously building the new generation of Jedi behind her. But I'd like for her to remain the center point of a lot of it, if that makes sense. Number 1, she's not going to die at the end of it. She doesn't say, all right, this is your fight now. But that she's like, yeah, we're still all in it because of her age, because of the time in her life. And that would be different enough for me in some ways compared to some of the other stuff we've seen. Because I love it. You could generational exchange and grow all day in Star Wars. But I just had a conversation recently at a party. Kind of hinted at it with Jen last week at our episodes. That the core of it was, what is Star Wars? And there's a lot of people there who are good faith people, by the way. I'll put that caveat out there. They're not coming to the conversation because they hate this stuff. They come to it because they love it and they grew up with it, are ready for a different approach for some of the things. So this is a film that you could do that. Yeah.
Jennifer, how do you feel about that idea that generational storytelling, nostalgia are some of the ingredients of Star Wars, and yet we're in a time where a lot of people are tired of those particular spices in the stew of Star Wars?
Yes. And I don't want to say I'm one of them, because I really loved the idea of Rey being no one. That to me was like, yes, this makes sense. I feel like the character has a lot of baggage now because of her familial ties, as opposed to Luke and Anakin and Vader. All of that was the core of the story. That to me is what the original trilogy is about. Or even like Ben or Kylo Ren and Han Solo and Leia. That's what that character is about. But to me, Rey is not about like her family. Like she didn't, like I said, she wasn't shaped by them, or she was shaped by a lack of family. That is a much more interesting story for me than her wrestling with, who her grandfather was. I don't like it. And I don't think it's necessary to tell her story well. Should it be mentioned? Absolutely. But I don't want the focus to be on that, because that is not that character's journey. At least what we've seen until the end.
Well, and I am not convincing you to like it, trying to convince you to like it more or not, but I feel like that's one of the reasons I like it is, on the surface, it's so noisy of like everything is defined by her being a Palpatine, and all the jerks in the movie say you're defined by being a Palpatine. And for me, the lesson of the movie is no, it's just noise. I decide who I am. And I still, I understand a lot of people don't like it and think it confuses it, and it's not the same as a no one story. But what I feel the power of it is her saying, no, I am defined by the parents who did everything they could to defend me. I'm defined by the friends and the people who actually helped me step into adulthood, of Luke and Leia. And these are all the things that define me. So I think that's part of the reason that I'm like, the generational storytelling and the nostalgia makes so much sense, but I want her to be able to move beyond that. Now she's telling her story, and the conflict is, how is she passing on? What is she passing on to the new generation? Not what has she gone through in the past? Yeah. I think a lot of this, were you going to say something there, Ken?
No, I was staying out of this one.
I have such a difficult time with it, because it's like, I want to see more colors. I want to see more colors of that. Her wrestling with her bloodline. I would have liked that more in The Last Jedi, or in the first. Guy, I'm like parallel with those weirdos online.
No, but
make a lot of money, so maybe I should say what I want to say.
You say what you want to say. No, Jed, I think it's important to realize that you are aligned with a lot of good faith people. This is the fun of debating these films. This is all. I mean, what Joseph's saying. I love Rise of Skywalker because I think Rey chooses to be no one in the sense of I found out who I am, and then chooses, obviously the big picture of becoming a Skywalker. But it doesn't mean it's there for everybody. It's also a perspective, right? So no, Don't hold back. Look, you want us to put some red eyes on the thumbnail? We'll put some red eyes on the
Oh my gosh. JJ, I love you. I think there's a case of if JJ had been in control of it the whole time, I do feel like there would have been more of those little like threads woven throughout. I just felt like The Last Jedi, I really felt like I was being steered on a course. And I don't think that The Rise of Skywalker undermines that, but it just doesn't play as well for me. I get it. I understand it. Like you're saying, it makes a lot of sense. I think it's powerful that she's going to reject that, right? That she's saying, no, my destiny is not determined by my bloodline. That's very powerful. But for me on screen, I don't feel like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I just connected with her more as a Rey being no one. That just felt like a really powerful. That you don't have to be an incredible hero because of your bloodline. It has nothing to do with it. It comes and which we see, right? It comes down to her choices. It doesn't have to do with her bloodline. But it also, I don't know. Anyways.
I think that makes it. I think that is a part of it that complicates it. In a reason that people reacted negatively to Palpatine of the sort of that whole question of the democratization of force powers.
Right.
And to me, like, I always get nerdy about it because the canon is, people are born randomly with very strong in the force. Obi-Wan Kenobi does not have powerful parents. Mace Windu, Orville Lynn, the jar of ooze in the High Republic doesn't come from a long line of force powerful ooze people.
Force oozes.
And I think that is one of the things that complicates it, because for me, it makes sense narratively that Rey had this fear. It makes sense for me when I look at the character of Rey, that Rey had this fear that the worst thing could be that she didn't have a part in the story. That's the nerve that Kylo is pushing on in Last Jedi. And then there's a natural escalation of, what if you do have a part in the story and it's the worst part? So for her, it to me, it escalates the challenge that she goes through. But there's this additional thing of making it all about, you're a Skywalker, you're a Palpatine, the most powerful Jedi have to be a bloodline, and it becomes about like who's the most powerful and all that kind of thing, which I think is something that complicates it. In a movie that is otherwise extremely democratic, to the point of having that line of, it's not a Navy, we're just people. So it does hurt when people like, it's not a very democratic film. Like, it's the most democratic film.
Right.
Literally, everyone shows up in their ship to vote. That's how that film ends. It's very democratic. Other thing I wanted to say about this, because we haven't waded into the waters of painful sequel conversation for a while, and I guess I miss it. But I found myself really affected by this because I felt this way starting in 2015 when The Force Awakens came out, and it's only gotten worse as people have become more resistant to the nostalgia. And we are in a place where I had meetings pitching things back in 2018 where people like, well, we only want IP, and like, so you should work on that. And like, yes, cool, I will time travel and invent Star Trek in 1962. Thank you. So I really get where people are coming from. The sequel trilogy to me strikes me almost tragic that it came out when it did, because I think the sequel trilogy is explicitly about the past. It's not that, you'll talk to people at parties who don't like the sequel trilogy because like it just repeats the same beats. They're just wrestling with the same things again and all that. And like, that's the story they set out to tell. This is all about characters wrestling with the past. To a character, you can map out, they wrestle with the past. Do they want to destroy it? Do they want to learn from it? Do they want to ignore it? Are they defined by it? And they choose how they're defined by it. And people who make healthy decisions do well, and people who can't move on from the past in whatever way don't do well. the three films to me are like a beautiful essay about nostalgia and the past, and they happen to come out right at a time when people are like, we don't want to talk about nostalgia anymore. It's like if you put out a movie about cars the very year that everybody's like, we don't drive cars anymore. It wouldn't be the movie's fault. So I'm really curious to see, as the generation who all of us who are alive in this time, regardless of your age, who went to each film, had years to debate and discuss between them, heard Rian Johnson say this quote, heard J.J. Abrams say this quote. When we're not the leaders of the conversation anymore, but 10-year-olds who watched it on their built-in iPad that lives in their eye, when they watch it without any of that baggage, when they watch it not in an era that's already defined by nostalgia, and just watch it and go, I grew up like Rey, haunted by the past. My dad is like Luke, who can't let things go, and just embrace the story for the story and not the story of how it is tied to the moment that it was released in. I'm so curious to see how the reception of these films change, because I think the actual execution of the films is a brilliant essay on the glory of the past and the danger of the past.
I've raised my voice many times at parties over take your worry of nostalgia and shove it up where nostalgia belongs, because these films are about that. They're literally the shadow of the past and how it affects those who lived it and those who go before it. I'm strongly about it. And it doesn't mean everything's perfect. And we are in a time where, Disney said, great, we got this, let's buy this IP and let's make it. And yes, we want fans from the past, but also we're going to make sure we tell everybody it's different from the prequels. Don't worry. We don't even know what a computer is. We don't even know. This is a real robot. All that, but it has to be at a case by case basis. There's some nostalgia in Star Wars, absolutely. There's nostalgia in these studios making it. It's woven in there. I totally get it, but I'm always like, look no further than Book of Boba Fett. It took this character that everyone had a lot of nostalgic feelings for, and said, what if he was something different? And how do we get from that point to that point? And I've had conversations with guys, I'm saying guys around my age, who are like, that ain't my Boba Fett. And who are also then, it's just all tied to nostalgia. I'm like, they just took your nostalgia and threw it in the garbage. And they're doing something new with this character. And I think that's why Jen and I love Book of Boba Fett. You too, Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, you've had those things of like, I grew up going, yeah, he was cool. That's about it for me. And now I have a different view on it. Like, so yeah, it's See, Joseph, you got me started. This is like Adam Witt pulling me into a conversation at Jen Murray's house, where I'm like, I'm not entering this conversation with you all about Star Wars. And then give me a drink, I'm in it, because it isn't about nostalgia. It's dangerously close, and you have to analyze it. But those three films are about some of the dangers of nostalgia.
I just have so many conversations with people about like them criticizing them, and that's, to me, that it's totally fine. I had a great conversation with a friend about the just general glut of nostalgia in culture, and then kind of lumping Star Wars into it. And it's like, I get it if you're having a big picture conversation about too much nostalgia.
Yes,
those films were wrestling with nostalgia, but it's just so frustrating to me. But I didn't particularly enjoy the X-Files reboot, for example, and I didn't feel like personally they managed to do anything new. Apologies to anybody who loved those, but to lump that in with Star Wars that's having a conversation about it in the sequel trilogy is so difficult for me. And also just the perspective of that, like, for anybody of our age who grew up with the original trilogy, it might seem like we are revisiting these beats, but also, like, I think for people growing up with the sequels, seeing, Rey, Finn, Poe, Rose, seeing these characters growing up with, we have all these expectations from the legends before us. That's fresh to people who are growing up with it. So I also think it's a thing where you kind of have to check your perspective of, if there's nothing new for you in the sequel trilogy, because you've already thought about these ideas, great. But also don't discount that there might be something new in it for a different generation.
Yeah, look, if Force Awakens had a little bit less sand and not Starkiller Base and a trench run attack on it, I think we'd have a different conversation. And I do agree. I had some early issues with Starkiller Base in the sense of here we go again. But we had the old ForceCenter discussions here, and go dig them up in the past of like, here are the new things in it, and yeah, that's my frustration. The Reitman's first Ghostbusters, I actually finally saw. I'm not a huge Ghostbusters fan. I thought it was really sweet. I thought it was real sentimental, and then I realized, they're actually like kind of quoting, like redoing scenes from the first movie. Like that's a little different energy for me. And kind of affected some of the heart that I think was there in that film. So yeah. Anyways, join us for Nostalgia Debate Center. So I'm not done yelling. About it.
Jennifer, you have any other nostalgia thoughts in how the sequel trilogy speaks on it?
Yeah, I thought that The Force Awakens for me was a home run. The Last Jedi for me was a home run. I enjoyed Rise of Skywalker. I understand the argument about the nostalgia, but it's like at the same time, like J.J. Abrams, like most people of his generation, was, affected by Star Wars, the originals. So of course his work is going to be influenced. I don't think it was redundant. I just find it an interesting criticism because, like, when Stranger Things came out, which is like hugely nostalgic, the opening scene is like straight out of 1980s movies. And yet everyone's like, this is genius. Did you see what they did? And I love Stranger Things, right? But it was held in a different regard than Star Wars, which was torn apart. Why is that? Why is Star Wars held up to this different standard that seems like impossible to meet? Either they're doing things that are too new and pushing boundaries, like The Last Jedi, like The Acolyte, and everyone's like, not everyone. A certain group is like, this is not my Star Wars, right? And then if you do something that's kind of familiar and makes sense because history repeats itself, then it's like, that's redundant. It's just, nostalgia bait. It's like, well, what do you want, person? Why don't you write the Star Wars story, get the funding, and go make it? Oh, that's right, you're not, because you're not hired to do it. So,
yeah, I simply think
I'm like, come on. Sorry.
No, go for it, Ken. What were you saying?
I just love Angry Jen. But also, this is the importance of one of the things we've zeroed in on here since pretty much the beginning of ForceCenter, of discussing the ideas presented in the film. It's one of the greatest gifts you've given to the world, Joseph. Let's focus on the themes, because everything else has been movie-fightized. Where it's, did you win this round? And it's this binary thing, nostalgia or not nostalgia. And Jen, you're right. Like, I do love Stranger Things too. It was made by two guys who didn't live during that time. It might have been Goo Goo Gaga babies during the 80s. And they had nostalgia for an era they didn't get to take a part of. And it was beautifully done. And it's still going. We'll hopefully one day that fifth season will show up with 3-hour episodes. It'll be there. But yeah, it's not fair. But that's that binary. Everyone's got to win this debate round view of movie punches.
I wait for the kids in Stranger Things to be taught to hide under the desk in case that will help them when a nuclear bomb goes off. Let's get full 80s nostalgia in there. Yeah. So to bring it back to the actual question. To me, this it is all related, because that's the question of, like,
it's all related.
Makes perfect logical sense for someone to challenge Rey politically with throwing dirt at her because she has this connection to Palpatine. Makes sense, but I think I really want the film to be about forward movement. I really want it to be about Rey is aware of the cycle of things because she was such a product of it, and her dyad Ben was so wounded by living up to these legacies and manipulated by all of these elders. Like, I feel like she's a character who would be aware of, like, yeah, you're not going to use the past, you're not going to use the cycles. So this is a new Jedi based on the past, but it's new, and we're moving forward. And there's a bunch of a-holes in the galaxy who don't want forward movement. What are we going to do about that? That's what I hope for in the film.
There's a lot of a-holes in the galaxy. It's a good way to look at life.
Maybe that will be the subtitle.
Jen,
you look like you're having thoughts.
Yeah, I was just like, there's a lot of a-holes in our real world who don't want forward movement. Yeah. Anywho.
Yep. Perfect evolution for me is Boba Fett is in touch with his feelings, but he still rides a Rancor and eats people sometimes. The Rancor, not Boba Fett. But maybe Boba Fett too. But he has emotions about it.
The deleted scenes.
Larder's getting low. Anyway, great question from Lack of Response. We will take a quick break, and we will be back with another, probably simpler question back in a moment. And we have returned here on Cues of the Force. Had a great conversation about the Rey and the New Jedi Order movie and the role of legacy in that film. But now we're going to take a question from Belle, who says, "Hi, Ken, Joseph, and Jennifer. Here's a request for a draft disguised as an ask. Smiley face. You are sent to investigate a Force anomaly on an inhabited planet like Indara's squad and Brendok, but hopefully with a lower death count. The planet only matters if you want it to matter to increase the difficulty in deciding if someone is suitable for the mission. If so, you're going to Felucia. You can take your Padawan and 4 other Force users that will fulfill specific categories. In addition to your Padawan, you need a fighter, a diplomat, a tag-along dark side user, think Maul and Rebels, and a personal favorite. So pick your Padawan, fighter, diplomat, darksider, and personal chosen one. Who are you taking? So Bell then included some very good rules that are also very complicated and started to break my brain a little bit. So I think we're just going to make picks because like I get the whole draft thing is like you come up with a pool. And that sounds like really fun if we took the time to like make a pool of like 80 Jedi and we went in order and none of us could have the same one. I know that's what Bell is going after with these rules, but I think it's a little bit more than we can handle. Ken, what are your expert draft opinions?
As a fantasy sports player now for 25 years, it's a snake draft. It's great. I get it all. There's some categories. I just don't remember enough of the Jedi names to fully complete. But I have come up with a list here. So Bell, this is great. Bell, this could actually be like this could be like a Discord thing. You just get a bunch of people and draft online live, like my baseball teams. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Bell's got a lot of great the order that we would pick in, that we can trade picks, specificity about what counts as a Force user, specific about all sorts of great rules, great stuff. But frankly, we just didn't have time to draft the initial pool of all the Jedi to organize this. So instead, we are just going to share our lists and discuss the why of the lists. Jennifer. Where are you at? Are you on board?
I did it wrong. Question? I did it wrong because.
What did you do?
Well, first of all, I don't know anything about fantasy football or anything. I'm just so confused. And now
so what did you do?
Well, you're reading the question. You're like 4 Force users. I don't have that many Force users in my group here.
Oh, so you picked some non-Force users
to
go on this mission.
Yeah, like for my fighter, I picked Chrysanthemum, who's not a Force user. I guess I could choose Kelnaka, but no, I really specifically want Chrysanthemum because I need some Wookiee muscles. He's no nonsense. He's tough, and I need that brute force. Well,
that's fine. Yours can be fan fiction where we get to imagine all these characters are secretly Force sensitive.
Oh my gosh! Oh shoot! I gotta go back to
what color is Chrysanthemum's blade?
Chrysanthemum just has to hang out with Ahsoka and Sabine for a little bit, and he might get there.
This is true. Yeah. Canonical. We all have the Force. Does Chrysanthemum have the patience to work on it? Maybe after Book of Boba Fett, he does.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So let's just go round robin. We'll each take a turn listing our characters and why we picked them. We could go in order. We're gonna each reveal our Padawan and see if we came up with the same Padawan. So Jennifer, let's start with you. Who is your Padawan and why?
There was also no cheating, which maybe I'm cheating here. For my Padawan, I wanted young Ahsoka Tano, specifically Ariana Greenblatt from the Ahsoka show.
No, you're not cheating. That's specific.
Okay. So what I love about that character, Ahsoka, little minor character. Sorry. What I love about the character is her positivity and hopefulness.
Yeah.
I need that. As you guys have been telling, I feel like I'm like goth gen these past few episodes. It's because I'm taking physics. It's really overwhelming for me. So I need that positivity. I need that hopefulness. She's quick. She's also willing to take direction, which I really appreciate. And when you hire an employee, which I'm envisioning, I would just like my Padawan, or you have a mentee, I want to be able to give direction and give guidance and have her be like, yes, I understand that. Or no, I don't. Can you explain why? I don't want her to feel like she knows everything, right? And I also want her to take initiative, which I think is important in a Padawan, I was going to say employee. So that's my pick, young Ahsoka Tano.
That's a very good one. The Ariana Greenblatt's really, really interesting. Do you feel seeing Ahsoka at that age as an actual, portrayed by a human instead of animated? Did it drive home to you how young this character is when she's involved in these heavy stakes?
Yeah, that's another thing I thought about is who am I bringing into potentially battle with? And my first thought was Jackie, and then I thought, well, that didn't end up so well. I know that Ahsoka can really hold her own just because we've been seeing it in the shows. So yeah, that's why she's coming, because I know she's going to survive.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good one, because there's some characters like, I like that character. They wouldn't make it.
They wouldn't make it.
They'd let me down. So maybe something bad has happened to my Padawan pick, but if so, I don't want to know yet. I first met him in the first phase of the High Republic adventures, and he's been one of my favorite characters. He's not a Padawan anymore, but he was when we met him, and that is a character named Reath Silas, one of the Jedi that made me feel seen. He was introduced, I believe, in the Into the Dark young adult novel by Claudia Gray. And Jennifer, he was a really bookish young man. He really loved the Jedi library. And unlike other Padawans we met, he did not crave adventure. He did not want to be sent away from the library. He's just like, I got to go out into the galaxy and prove myself so I can go back to the damn library. And there's great writing where, he's trained with the lightsaber, but he hasn't been out there. And there's like a standoff with some pirates where like, I've warned him 3 times and he's still gonna shoot this person. I gotta cut his arm off. And Reath feels so bad and like that he has to do it. And it's like, it's totally getting away from any sort of like, I have a lightsaber, everybody has to listen to me sort of power fantasy. It's like, this is my responsibility to cut your arm off. But I feel really, 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 really bad about it. Just a great and thoughtful character. And I think Reath has initiative, but would follow direction as well. So Reath is my Padawan.
It's a great answer. Yeah, absolutely. Going back to great phase 1 choice.
Yeah. So Ken, who is your Padawan?
I'm being specific here. I'm going back to Asajj Ventress as a Jedi Padawan. This is someone who had a lot of tragedy in her life, had a lot of mentors taken away from her, including the Jedi Master that has kind of taken her in. So, hey, what if we can stop her journey there? Now, I think Asajj goes on to find herself. She's very independent. I am so intrigued about more storytelling. I can't wait to get more with Asajj Ventress to see how she's still alive, how she survived, but who she is now, that she is really more comfortable and confident in being Asajj Ventress. But I'd like to go back there, so I don't want to say I'm going to force her down a Jedi path, but I just like, hey, she's got so many skills. She's a top prospect, and let's get some good coaching around her, and I'll bring her in. Like, let's do it. And so that's where I'm going. Kid Asajj. Kid Asajj.
Great choice.
Yeah.
Great choice.
Yeah.
So Jennifer, then we get to your fighter, and you have selected Chrysanthemum.
Yeah.
Did you? What spoke to you about Chrysanthemum in the Book of Boba Fett series?
That he was. Chewie feels. I don't want to say a gentle giant because he's not, right? We know
sure.
we know what he can do, what he's capable of. But Chrysanthemum is just like the mafia, the cleaner, the Iceman. Did you guys ever see that documentary, The Iceman Cometh?
No,
really,
gonna add it to
good.
the list now.
Oof, it's good. HBO, many years ago. Anyways, like he's not gonna be like debating about whether or not to rip someone's arm off. You tell him he's gonna do it. But he's also gonna be restrained when he needs to be. you know, and I appreciate that. He's not like some reckless guy, Wookiee, who's going to be getting us into danger. He's going to know when to hold back and then when to use force. No pun intended. That's what we need.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. It's a very good pick. My fighter pick is a little bit tragic, but I believe the action figure of him did just arrive. I need to open it from the box and then not open the actual action figure package. But my fighter is going to be Jedi Master Soul from the Acolyte. And the reason I picked him is I'm not going to allow him any decision making.
Fair.
Because it breaks my heart, but he did indeed make some bad decisions in the Acolyte, in my opinion. Not entirely to blame all by himself, in my opinion, but yes, some bad decisions. But one of the things that I loved with my whole heart in the Acolyte, and particularly that final episode, is the payoff on that whole story of, you know, you can't kill them, you know, with a knife, which has had that great sort of philosophical, you have to attack the dream of the Jedi, which is great. But then I loved that in that final episode, it was just like, no, literally, you know, the stranger could not kill Jedi Master Soul. Jedi Master Soul was just an amazing fighter who seemed like, even though he had made flawed decisions and was tormented in his heart, that when he was fighting, he was this perfect Jedi ideal of just like, I am utterly calm. I'm not into this fight, but I see every move that you're going to do. I'm anticipating it, and I have a block for it. You're not going to, you know, break my concentration. You're not going to break my flow. Physically, I am unbeatable. And it was only his, you know, flaws and the bad choices he made that led to his death. So I feel like if you're like, Soul, you've made some dubious calls, so you're not making any decisions on this team. But if a problem goes down, physically you're the fighter. So that's my pick.
Fighter. Love that.
That's good.
Ken, who's your fighter?
I'm going with the classic. I'm going Mace Windu.
Yeah.
I'm bringing that purple blade, that smirk, that look he gives after beheading Jacob Fett. I still contend that maybe Palpatine was kind of playing possum a little bit with him, but Mace was there at the end. He's one arm away from winning, maybe from a certain point of view. Going Mace Windu. He's the best of the best of the best, and that's why I want him on my team. If we need to get in a fight, now that's the thing too, is he's not going to just jump in right away. He'll have a funny line. This party's over. Like he's got some wit to him. But once the fight's on, if we need to fight, he's my guy.
Good. Yeah, I think I continue to believe that Palpatine was manipulating Anakin's feelings, but I think Palpatine lost that fight. I think he legitimately got kicked in the face.
He definitely
Mace Windu.
Yeah.
Yep. Very good pick. Jennifer, this is so much fun.
Oh,
who is your diplomat?
Well, see, now here I went wrong again. I said Grief Karga, which that's not right. So I'm going to change it. Okay. So by diplomat, do we just mean somebody that's like diplomatic?
Yeah.
I think if it was a mission like the Brendok one, a diplomat who's like, no, I'm in charge of talking to other people. You know, nobody else can engage. I'm doing the diplomacy. If any violence pops up, you fight. But I'm doing the talking.
Okay, then when that's the case, then I'm going to go with Obi-Wan Kenobi, specifically from the Kenobi series, that Kenobi era. I do think that there's something about Kenobi that he is able to speak to the masses, right? He's friends with Dexter Jettster. He's able to mingle, right? To talk with anyone. And that's what we need, is what I'm sensing from this, which is why I chose Grief Karga, because he has traveled in some unsavory circles that he's going to know how to use it to his advantage, right? So same idea. That's what we need in my crew. Resourcefulness.
Yeah. Okay, now this is a torture now, because do we follow the draft rules and not pick any of the same Jedi?
No. We're breaking rules. We're already breaking rules.
Yeah, we're breaking rules.
Because Kenobi was going to be on my list, but definitely diplomat. He's the negotiator. I think that's the thing, is I think he has a true respect and a true interest to see things from lots of different angles. I think, his early wisdom to Luke of, being defined by points of view. I think that comes from like trying to understand how things work and how people work and what people want. And I think he is a great actual diplomat of like, okay, there's a problem here. Two people want different things. I'm going to be realistic with you about, you're probably not going to go both get 100% of what you want, but what's in the middle? I understand where you're both coming from. What can we do? I think Kenobi would be great like that. And I think, a beard is not necessary for diplomacy, but I think it's really good to buy you time. I think that helps him a lot. So it's the sort of Revenge of the Sith era General Kenobi for sure. That's my pick. Ken, do we have a Kenobi sweep? Is Kenobi your diplomat?
We do not. Great. Kenobi's great. Both those eras are great. I went with Yaddle.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yaddle, like what I've seen so far in the Jonathan Jackson Miller's Live and Force book. I'm still waiting to finish it. I've got to clear some time in my life for that. But going to the Tales of the Jedi, which was her unfortunate demise, but voiced by Bryce Dallas Howard. I loved that kind of some of the stuff you're saying, Joseph, that she was able to go to Dooku and understand him, pick up on what was going on with him, and offer some concessions, which I think is key. Not necessarily she's going to move off. She still stood before him to her end, but like she's not going to move off what they need. Just like the Jedi, if we're investigating some planet, she's not going to move off everything. But there has to be a certain amount of empathy. There has to be a certain amount of understanding where you're coming from and how we being here might be against your desires, needs, wants. That might fuel your fears. So she's got a quiet, confident demeanor. So I'm going Tales of the Jedi Yaddle, that era.
I think that's a great pick. It's a very great pick. All right, we are on to perhaps the most shocking section, the Darksider, who has come along on the mission. Jen, who do you have for your Darksider?
Well, Chimere. Whether he's a full Sith, whatever. We're not going to. Of course, I had to choose him.
Yes, yeah.
Come on. But the reason why is because, yes, he's incredibly powerful, but he also has the ability to be unassuming to people, to be low status, right? The underdog. And so that could come in handy if we're ever having to go undercover with anyone or do any sort of like missions like that. I think that could be advantageous.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. The Darksider is the part where this gets the most narratively complex, right? Because what's keeping them in check. Like I love the example of Maul from Rebels. So like when Maul is aligned with Ezra, and like we kind of want the same thing, and you're young and I can manipulate you, and then I'll kind of go along with you, but you got to keep your eye on him all the time. Chimere would be, oh my gosh. How do you keep Chimere in line? That's the song from my Star Wars musical. How do you keep a Chimere in line?
I don't know. I don't know.
For my Darksider, I'm gonna go wild. I'm gonna go barely canonical, just because I want to include her. Dark Rey. I want that vision of Rey with those scary teeth.
Ooh, yeah, so scary.
Because extremely powerful, and it would be fun to see more of that strange vision of what that character is or could be. I don't want that for Rey. I'm glad she didn't choose it, but I would like to understand how that happened to her teeth. And she'd be extremely powerful with her cool fold-up double-bladed red lightsaber. Ken, who is your Darksider and why?
I agree with you that this is like narratively, this is an interesting inclusion into our investigative team. Is it someone that's going to blow things up? Is it a wild card? What skills do they bring in, and why are they there? So I thought the only reason I'd want a Darksider on this mission is if it was a FUBAR situation and we needed someone to go, all right, we're going to kick him in the crotch because we need to get out of here. And for that, I went with Pong Krell.
Yeah. Pong Krell's a great pick.
Pong Krell just being like, hey, I get it. I'm on the team, but I got some fears that are going to overtake us right now. So let's mess this up and be a-holes about it. And I think the Pong Krell's end was justified. But I'm going to want him on this investigative team. Don't like him. Don't want him in the clubhouse, but you sometimes need him.
Yep. Love it. Absolutely love that. Jennifer, we're down to our final choice, just our personal chosen one. Who's your personal chosen one and why?
Initially, I said a Saj Ventress, but my heart is telling me I need someone maternal. I need some maternal energy. Like I need my mom there. So I'm going to say Leia. I don't know if I want General Leia from the sequel trilogy. I think I want it a little bit after Return of the Jedi. This is my own fantasy headcanon. I think that could be really, really helpful for just for me emotionally, because I'm going to need some support, some emotional support, as well as force power.
Yeah, absolutely, and force insight, and Leia's great. My personal chosen one. This was the hardest, but I got to go with my old friend Tara Sinube, somebody who is wise, experienced, doesn't need to be leading the team, but the diplomat when they need kind of a break and nobody else is around, going like, "Hey, am I messing this up?" Kind of the same as you of wanting a maternal figure with Leia. I want Tara Sinube to be like, "Ooh, maybe you shouldn't have said that, but it will be okay." And if not, I have a lightsaber cane. That's what I need. A gentleman with a lightsaber cane. That's what I want in my life. Ken, who is your personal chosen one?
This is tough. A lot of great answers. A lot of great answers still out there. A lot of Jedi I love. Leia, at any point, great answer. I mean, come on. Luke. Ever heard of Luke Skywalker? Love him. Rey. Look up to Rey. There's so many things there. But I was like, all right, who is my personal chosen one? Who speaks to me the most? There was a backup choice that I didn't get to, and that was Rael Alvaros. From Master and Apprentice. But I was like, who's the better version of him? And again, having, unfortunately, because of life schedule, fallen off the High Republic, don't anyone spoil anything in the comments or on social media. I don't know what happens to him, all right? The way the High Republic was going, probably nothing good, all right? But my personal chosen one is Elzar Mann. I've loved him from the beginning. It's a Jedi that, he might occasionally have a drink, make a mistake in the bedroom with someone he's in love with. He might go up against the rules. He reminds me a little bit of when I was a security director. I wore the suit. I wore the tie. I had trust. People liked me. They promoted me. But the amount of times that I had conversations with my bosses that were just like, you don't have enough pieces of flair on your figurative security suit. You're not following all the rules here. You bend them. Why do you have that mustache and beard? You're not supposed to have that. And I think that's some of the spirit of Elzar Mann. But at the end of the day, he believed he was part of the team, and he's always going to get the job done. So that's my personal chosen one. And the one on this mission. He might be there at the time of landing. Hey, he might find someone on the planet that he wants to spend some time with. We don't know.
He's probably going to make a mistake. And the really fun part with Elzar Mann is like a little one or a big one, because you're going to make a mistake. I agree with Ken. Elzar was one of my favorite characters in Phase 1. I'm still trying to get caught up in Phase 2. Haven't read any of Phase 3, and I know Elzar's got some big stuff going on. So, but don't let us know in the comments, because I do look forward to getting caught up. And the Elzar-Avar relationship is one of the things I most look forward to getting caught up on. Well, there we go. I think we mostly did it, except for a very predictable using Kenobi twice. Besides that.
Yeah.
We did it. Thank you, Belle, for the very, very fun and very different question and a way to just celebrate Jedi characters that we like, Force-sensitive characters, and Chrysanthemum. Again, you want to take us home?
I do. I make notes on time codes for the episodes, but during our nostalgia conversation, I had to lick the pen like my grandmother sent in a postcard in the 70s, and I was nostalgic for that. So, anyways, that's why I'm looking down. Yes, we are here talking about a lot of things. We are Force Center. You can find us on social media, especially Blue Sky and Threads right now on Force Center Pod on Instagram, Facebook page is Force Center Podcast. We're available a lot of spots as a podcast. Just search, you'll find us merch available. 2 spots, tpublic.com/user/Force Center. And you can also check our fourth wall link on YouTube. Patreon.com/Force Center is where to support us and get into our Discord, where I'm sure Belle's in Discord. This is going to be a great conversation, this draft. In fact, let me engage in some good old-fashioned engagement farming. If you're watching on YouTube or you're listening to the podcast, go to our YouTube version of this episode, and in the comments down below, just write Padawan, Fighter, Diplomat, Dark Side, and Personal Chosen One, and give us your answer. If you want to explain it, go for it. There you go. Engage away, my friends. Engage away. You can follow me at Ken Napzok or my website, kennapzok.com, for more of a radio show called Pop Rockin' Radio. It is on the radio live in Pennsylvania every Sunday night at midnight, but you can listen to it wherever you are via things like TuneIn or Radio Box. A lot of those radio streaming apps. Just look for Hall of Fame Music Radio. Saturdays, midnight Eastern is Pop Rockin' Radio with me, Ken Napzok. That's right. Jen, Wolfman Jack says, take it away.
I really wish my crew was real. I could use all these people right now. Wookiees. You can find me on all the social media sites at Jennifer Landa or TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138.
Joseph, great job today, as always. But you got us through some, some intense, tough conversations, but also through a very tough fantasy football, baseball Jedi draft.
It's worth it. Now I get to picture Chrysanthemum helping Jennifer with her physics homework.
Oh.
So it's worth it all. Worth it all. This has been a very fun discussion. And yeah, like Ken said, I look forward to reading all of your picks in the comments. You can find me on social media at Joseph Scrimshaw, and you can check out my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for updates on film stuff. Got a lot going on. I think I'm going to be releasing some of the short films I've been working on to YouTube soon. And also been fighting hard to get this feature film that I wrote off the ground. It's called Dead Media, and there are 2 ways that you can help me with it. I have a fiscal sponsorship with an organization in Minnesota called Film North that can take straight donations that are tax deductible. So if you'd like to contribute to the film, you can do it that way. There's a link on my website. Or if you just want to help me with the weird machinery of Hollywood, you can just click on my IMDb page for 2 seconds, and that will help me. So thank you for even considering. That is it. This has been Cues of